hand. It was produced here. It was a little hatchback coupe that we started exporting to the rest of the world.
As Hyundai Motors have grown, their ambitions have too. Now the company is going head-to-head with some of Europe's most prestigious brands, like BMW and Mercedes.
The ambition early on was to produce vehicles. If you build them, they'll sell. We found out pretty quickly that if you build too many, you can get out ahead of your quality process. And so in 2000, we really retrenched and said, we're not going to focus on volume anymore, we're going to focus on quality. And spent the past 10 years reassessing what success meant. We think now success doesn't necessarily mean being number one. The goal now is to try and be the world's best automaker, and honestly, if we do that, the rankings will come on their own.
When Samsung had problems with quality control, they chose a different way of dealing with it.
In 1995, when a fault was found with some of the cordless phones produced at our Gumi plant, the chairman ordered about 2,000 executives together for a ceremony. And at that ceremony, these cordless phones and other devices were destroyed in a ceremonial way. And this was really done in order to emphasize and signal a real shift in the way that we approached quality management.
Hyundai believes their success is due in part to improved products, but also understanding local markets.
One of the ways that Hyundai Motor has really assured its success globally is relying on the expertise in local markets and not necessarily putting a Korean imprint everywhere around the world. It's an intensely pragmatic culture and pragmatic business environment.
When the global downturn hit in 2008, Hyundai America came up with a radical idea to get US citizens to buy Korean cars.
We created something we called the Hyundai Assurance Plan, and we basically said, if you buy a new Hyundai and you lose your job, you can give the car back. And the truth of it was, we didn't get many cars back, but it created a great deal of goodwill.
The following year, Hyundai took on rival Toyota, cheekily offering a $1,000 trade-in in the US during the Japanese car giant's woes. And it worked. Hyundai increased its market share. South Korea's hunger to succeed enabled it to pay back its IMF loan 3 years early. And by 2004, it had joined the $1 trillion club of world economies.
I think globalization is inevitable. We've known that the world economy grows faster by interdependence and trade. If that is the paradigm, then for those of us who see ourselves as more advanced economies, have one goal: to climb the value-added change.
South Korea now has 10 companies in the global Fortune 500, has recently ratified a free trade agreement with the EU, and is close to doing a deal with the US.
Samsung's home market of Korea is relatively small, which means that our growth is really outside of the country. So today, more than 90% of Samsung's revenue is generated in exports outside of Korea.
One of the impressive things about South Korean industry is its ability to forge new markets very quickly, particularly being bold and going into areas where other investors, and particularly their rivals, sometimes are a bit fearful to go. And if you take a company like Samsung Electronics, it's the second biggest individual exporter from China. So they've certainly moved into these regional markets. As soon as they can see an opportunity, they'll move into it.
In 2009, Samsung's profits were double Japan's 9 major consumer and industrial electronics companies combined. In 2010, Samsung posted record sales, putting them ahead of Hewlett-Packard and Siemens.
China is one of our most important markets today. It makes up around 16% of our global revenue. Obviously, with the growing Chinese middle class, there's a lot more demand these days for premium electronics products, like our flat-screen TVs and smartphones.
In 1990, there was only one flight a week between South Korea and China. By now, there are hundreds of flights each week. Now the push is more gravitating towards Vietnam and Indonesia. These are, again, tough markets. And the Korean background, coming from a nation raised by war, has created very bold leaders who like the idea of slightly tough, hard to work in environments, and they're more willing to go there than, say, Japanese companies that can be more wary. If an American company opens a shoe factory in Indonesia, the Koreans will move there within months to build up a shoe factory to compete with it. In other areas, they are just being bold. At the moment, they're even looking at real frontier markets like Cambodia. So they're looking to build the first really big international airport in Cambodia, real estate, leisure there. They're outstripping the Chinese at the moment in the amount that they're investing into Cambodia. They're the biggest expatriate community in Indonesia, so they're really on the march in these kind of frontier markets.
By 2009, South Korea was the world's 9th largest exporter. In display panels, memory chips and shipbuilding, they ranked number 1. In mobile phones, 2nd. Cars, 5th. Petrochemicals, steel and textiles were all in the top 10. But there are new global markets in South Korea's sights, the so-called soft power service industries. These are not factory but city-based, and they need highly educated individuals to create new wealth. Can South Korea Inc. become a world beater here as well? Just 60 kilometers from the border with North Korea, Seoul changed hands 4 times during the Korean War. Like South Korea's economy, it has been rebuilt and expanded and is now one of Asia's international business hubs. Seoul's ambition is to compete with destination cities like New York or Paris. About half of South Korea's total population live in and around Seoul. That's 20